The Class 170 Turbostar diesel trains have been the workhorse of West Midlands local services for over 20 years. However, they are starting to show their age internally. Not only this, but they are rather expensive to lease. To resolve this and provide more investment to the West Midlands rail scene, West Midlands Railway, operated by West Midlands Trains, have introduced brand new Class 196 diesel trains to their network. These were initially due to enter service in 2020, although owing to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic amongst other issues, this introduction was delayed until today, the 17th of October 2022. The first trains working on the Birmingham to Shrewsbury line. So, join me in this video as we take a look at these new trains and see whether they're an improvement to what they replaced. And with that, it's now time for us to get this show on the rails. We start our journey today on board this Class 170 at Wolverhampton station, where we'll be taking it up to Shrewsbury in order to attend the first ever service of their successor, the Class 196, the following morning. The Class 170s were initially built in 1999, and their last refresh was in 2009, so they're definitely due an upgrade. Right, let's head off. Owing to earlier issues on the Stour Valley line, we depart approximately 10 minutes late. The journey should take around 45 to 50 minutes, so I guess I'll see you when we arrive at Shrewsbury. On the approach to Shrewsbury, we can see one of the Class 196 trains, which we'll be catching tomorrow. We won't be catching this particular example though, as this one is just stabled for driver training purposes. The one that we'll be catching will be running ECS from Birmingham in order to arrive and take us onwards to New Street. And we've arrived safe and sound. Come tomorrow morning, this will be a completely different train. So, I guess I'll be joining you in the morning to see just how that turns out. A very good morning from Shrewsbury Station, where it's currently around 6:30 in the morning, and we're ready to board the very first West Midlands Railway Class 196 service. Shrewsbury Station, much like the rest of the town, is a station with a very rich history. It was initially built in 1848 and was made a Grade 2 listed building in 1969. Its 1848 construction enabled the operation of the Shrewsbury to Chester line, the County of Shropshire's first railway, which is still operational to this day. Despite the grand exterior design of the building, the ticket hall inside is rather small in comparison. Also note the Floreat Salopia nameplate located just below the ceiling, which was taken from an old locomotive and is the Latin motto for Shrewsbury that means let Shrewsbury flourish. To the right is a ticket kiosk where you can purchase tickets from a member of staff. Alternatively, there are two ticket machines located just before the barriers, which, strangely enough, are open despite it being the morning peak. To reach the platforms, either use the lift to the left or go up the stairs to the right, of which I'll be doing the latter. In terms of shops and facilities, the only thing I could find was a Starbucks coffee. Otherwise, there's not really that much to prepare you for your onward journey. This is located between platforms 4 and 7. Transport for Wales manage the station and also provide most of its services, serving destinations such as Manchester, Cardiff and beyond throughout the Wales and borders, using diesel trains such as the Class 158 right in front of me. As well as Transport for Wales services and West Midlands Railway services to Birmingham, Avanti West Coast provides several services a day between Shrewsbury and London Euston, although this is not going to be the case this morning for obvious reasons. There does seem to be a bit of a blast from the past in the waiting room located between platforms 4 and 7, as this contains the logos on the doors of previous operator Arriva Trains Wales, who operated the Wales and Border franchise until 2018. Nevertheless, I still found this to be the most modern part of the station. And of course, no tour of Shrewsbury Station is complete without showing the Severn Bridge Junction signal box in the background, which is the largest working signal box in the world. This splits the lines between Birmingham and the Welsh Marches. After enough waiting, our train has arrived from Tyseley depot empty in order to prepare for our service at 6:51. This train is a Class 196 diesel train, which was built by CAF between 2019 and 2021. As with many of CAF's products nowadays, the body shells were built at Bisane in Spain and were subsequently exported to the UK, in order to complete final assembly at their Newport factory in Wales. The units are subclassed as either Mark 0 or Mark 1 units. The Mark 1 unit, which we'll be travelling on today, is a 4-carriage unit, whereas the Mark 0 unit is a 2-car unit. I must admit that I really do love the livery on these trains, as it does look really striking, yet smart. Although, I just have to point this out, doesn't it look a little bit like Sainsbury's? Or is it just me? It would also appear as if the external dot matrix display is playing up. The train is named after Shrewsbury-born naturalist Charles Darwin, who came up with the concept of evolution, amongst others. The crowds for this service don't appear to be that busy, which is despite the cancellation of the earlier Avanti service, although this does pick up later on during the route. Staff from both West Midlands Railway and CAF, the manufacturer of the trains, were in attendance for their first ever run in passenger service. Consequently, it would be rude for them not to have a photo opportunity before leaving for Birmingham New Street. Well, the time has now come. It's now time for us to board the train and take a look around. My initial impressions are that the interior definitely feels a lot more spacious than the Class 170s these will be replacing. This isn't only because these are naturally 4-car units, but also in the way that the interior is designed. The seating layout of the train is 2+2 throughout and does feature some tables, although there is something missing as you can see from the seats. But what do you think it is? We'll find out later. My plan was originally to sit at the front, but there does appear to be some members of staff sitting there, so this is where I'll be basing myself for the trip. But before we head off, it's time to take a look at our route for today. The bulk of our route today is along the Shrewsbury to Wolverhampton line, with stops at Wellington, Telford Central, Shifnal, Old Brighton and Wolverhampton, following which we travel along the Stour Valley Line branch of the West Coast Main Line, onto Sandwell and Dudley, and finally Birmingham New Street. Our scheduled arrival time into Birmingham New Street is approximately 7:57 this morning, so we're in for a rather early start, but it should be good fun nonetheless. Right, let's get moving.
Welcome aboard this service to Birmingham New Street. We will be calling at Wellington, Telford Central, Shifnal, Albrighton, Wolverhampton, Sandwell and Dudley, and Birmingham New Street.
As it's quite dark outside, I thought I'd start with a Know Your Seat. The seats themselves are rather firm yet ergonomically comfortable, and are the same ones as used by Greater Anglia on their flirt trains. However, they appear to be missing their armrests, which I do find to be a bit strange, especially considering that there are tables there present throughout the train. Although, I do have to admit that this does enable much more freedom of movement, so I'm all for the idea. Power and USB sockets are located beneath each seat, although whilst this is a welcome addition compared to the Class 170s, this is a massive flaw with most modern builds that there aren't enough for each passenger. The legroom on the table seats I found to be quite adequate, especially as for the majority of the journey I was sitting opposite one of my friends. As for the airline style seats, I found this to be very generous as well, especially when compared to the Class 170 trains these units are replacing. Each airline style seat has a foldable tray as a substitute for a table, which also includes a groove for a cup holder. The power and USB sockets are also located between each seat, although I do find them to be more conveniently located as opposed to those at the table seats. I think this has to be the first ever train where I've actually successfully managed to do the Jeff Marshall window alignment, as it was really good, especially compared to CAF's other designs, such as the Class 195, which will be coming out on my channel soon, so do subscribe so you don't miss the video. Whilst the design spec really impressed me, especially compared to CAF's other offerings, the one disappointment and flaw with the design spec was the lack of available luggage space, as only overhead luggage racks were present and no other luggage racks were present throughout the rest of the train, which is rather disappointing for a regional express train. Located just above the seats are coat hangers, which appear to be much sturdier than the plastic ones on the Class 170, for the hanging of coats and bags. Another new feature with these trains that isn't present on the Class 170 fleet they're replacing is the addition of passenger information screens, which shows a large variety of information that would be useful when carrying out your journey. For example, this round here shows the destination of the train as well as the 7 calling points. Just below can be seen the carriage number as well as the current time. Other information shown includes a journey progress map as well as a hotline for contacting the British Transport Police in case anything's wrong. See it, say it, sorted, as they say. Yeah, I know, I'll take my coat. Our first stop of the trip is Wellington, which, as with Shrewsbury, acts as a hub between Avanti West Coast services on a limited basis, West Midlands Railway services and Transport for Wales services, although this is only on the Wolverhampton to Shrewsbury line, but the West Midlands Railway service we're on now picks up additional stops compared to the other two operators. The Wrekin, a hill located in East Shropshire, has its summit located 3 miles southwest of the town, and I honestly would recommend going up there as the views are absolutely spectacular. It's still relatively dark outside, so it's time for a little bit of a wander around our train. Located immediately after entering the second carriage is a standard toilet. I won't be reviewing this one, but let's have a little bit of a look inside. Absolutely immaculate. Almost as if it just entered service today. Oh wait, it did. The seating arrangement, as discussed, is 2+2 featuring tables, but it's still weird to see tables without armrests, even though I am starting to see the logic. When operating the interconnecting doors, just wave your hand in front of the sensor and they'll open automatically. Very similar as to how the Class 170s these trains are replacing operated on the line. As we enter the fourth carriage, we come across the wheelchair accessible toilet, which I will be having a look at shortly. But for now, that's it for the walkthrough. Just in time as well, as we're now approaching our second stop of Telford Central, another principal stop on the route. As well as being the largest town in Shropshire, Telford is one of the fastest growing towns in the UK, which is rather fitting considering it was named after an engineer named Thomas Telford. The final thing to look at on board this train is the wheelchair accessible toilet, of which I'll be doing a full review. I quite like how different the door announcements sound. They almost partially make up for the slower closure of the door compared to the Class 170s.
Don't forget to lock the door. The door is locked.
Right, door locked, we can begin. My initial impressions are it is rather clean, but then again, I'm probably one of the first people to have ever used it in passenger service. I did have a bit of a mishap here, as I underestimated where the soap was actually going to be, but nevertheless, it still worked fine. The tap, on the other hand, I found was rather poor flowing, especially compared to the trains these are replacing. Nevertheless, it was still fine. The dryer, on the other hand, was very strong in comparison. So overall, I have to say I would give it a thumbs up. There's only one minor area where it falls foul in, and I can live with that. Right, it's time to open the door and head back to my seat. The Wolverhampton to Shrewsbury line is an important corridor linking Shropshire with the rest of the West Midlands. Although, as it's principally a regional route, the maximum speed on the line is 70 miles an hour, although the Class 196 that we're on right now is capable of doing 100, much like the Class 170s which they're replacing. The passing of Oxley Depot to the left indicates that we're on the approach to Wolverhampton. Oxley Depot is owned and operated by Alstom, and is where Avanti West Coast maintains its Pendolino fleet, and in the future is Class 805 and 807 fleet. To the left can also be seen some Class 730s, which are destined for the Cross City line, which are currently based here as part of their free fault running period. We have now rejoined the Stour Valley line, and are now on the approach to our second to last stop before Birmingham, which is Wolverhampton. Wolverhampton acts as a major hub on the Birmingham branch of the West Coast Main Line, with operators serving here including Transport for Wales, West Midlands Railway, London North Western Railway, Avanti West Coast, and cross country. As we come to the end of the platform, do take note of one of the iron horse sculptures designed by Kevin Atherton in 1987 and is one of 12 located between Wolverhampton and Birmingham New Street. As we cross over Crane Street Junction, below we can see what was formerly part of the GWR rail route between Wolverhampton Low Level and Birmingham Snow Hill. Our final stop of the route before Birmingham New Street is Sandwell and Dudley, which is our only intermediate stop on the Star Valley line between Wolverhampton and Birmingham. The name of the station is actually quite misleading, as the station is actually located between Oldbury and West Bromwich and not anywhere near Dudley. This means that we only have a mere 7 minutes to go before we arrive at our final stop of Birmingham New Street. Right, conclusions. Overall, I have to admit I was pleasantly surprised by the Class 196 trains, as given their history with their sister units, the Class 331 and Class 195 units, when they were first launched 3 years ago, I was expecting it to go the same way for the Class 196s. But I have to admit they have absolutely blown me away, and I was really impressed with their performance, ride quality and new features. My criticisms are the lack of available luggage space, as well as seat comfort compared to the trains they're replacing. But, on the other hand, I would honestly say that the overall features of the train far outweigh those of the Class 170, and I'm very much looking forward to the rollout of the fleet as time goes on. I must admit that this is my favourite part of the route, not just because we're passing Soho Depot, the home of the Class 323, but also because we're passing the Grand Union Canal, which, coupled with the fact that it's now light outside, provides fantastic scenery on our approach to Birmingham. And on that note, that's it from me, and welcome to Birmingham New Street. And that's a wrap. The first ever Class 196 service completed. As much as I'll miss the Class 170s, I feel like these are honestly a worthy replacement for them, and that they are much more needed at EMR, where they're intended to be transferred. Well, anyways guys, I really do hope you've enjoyed the video today, and thanks so much for coming along with me on this ride. If you did enjoy the video, please do give it a like, as well as share it, as that really does help the channel to grow. If you're new to the channel and want to see more content such as this, why not consider subscribing as well as enabling notifications, as I'm now uploading new videos every Friday at 5 PM. Right, it's now time for me to enjoy my time in Birmingham, as it has been a while. So, until the next time, take care, stay safe, and I'll see you next Friday at 5 PM. Goodbye.